Well, we're fighting fire with fire. Donald Trump is not screwing around. He's trying to rig the next election in the midterms. There's a reason members of the Trump team sent me a Trump 2028 hat with a note. Is they're not screwing around, and we can no longer screw around either.
That was California Governor Gavin Newsom telling Democrats they need to fight fire with fire in combating Trump and the GOP's redistricting efforts. Newsom has been on the offensive this week against Trump, repeatedly trolling him on social media by mimicking the president's often used all-caps screeds on Truth Social, including today's brutal response to Trump's bizarre Bella post by writing in all caps, "Donald Tiny Hands has written his autobiography this morning. Unfortunately, low IQ, he spelled it wrong, beta. Soon you will be a fired beta because of my perfect, beautiful maps. Thank you for your attention to this matter." And just a few hours ago, Newsom filed a FOIA request to investigate what he calls the Trump administration's misuse of federal law enforcement at his redistricting press conference, saying, "We will not back down in our defense of democratic freedom, and the Trump administration should answer for this pathetic and cowardly behavior." And joining us now, we have our friends Emma Vigeland, co-host of The Majority Report, and Jake LaHutte, senior writer for Wired. Okay, so Emma, was that funny?
I mean, look, I'll take the partisanship, right? I think the Democrats for too long have been fighting with one hand tied behind their back when it comes to this issue of gerrymandering. Until there is some sort of federal independent commission that mandates this and standardizes it across the country, there's no reason that Democrats should be unilaterally disarming here. There was a Brennan Center, I think, analysis at the end of 2024 that showed that due to gerrymandering, there are an additional 16 seats that are more favorable to Republicans in Congress, and Democrats have to respond in kind because quite literally our democracy is at stake here. But I will say that it can't just be this kind of partisan fight. If the Democrats want to take the next step, they have to pair this with an agenda that puts working people to the forefront. Because we saw the resistance was effective in Trump 1.0 and thwarting him in many ways, but it was short-lived and not durable because the Democrats didn't coalesce around a positive vision that harnessed this populist anger towards the elites by basically saying we're going to tax billionaires and we're going to make your life better, whether it be via universal child care, universal health care, et cetera. And I think a winning message in 2028 is going to be the person that says, you see your tax dollars going to the genocide in Gaza. I'm going to make sure that your tax dollars go to improving your life materially.
So you've just laid out part of the problem, or part of the issue is the message problem. And I've said before, Democrats have a twofold problem. One is a message problem, and the second is the messenger problem. So let's assume that you've solved the message problem. Mm-hmm. Is Gavin Newsom the right messenger?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that this is helpful right now, but we all know that the favorites 3 years out from a presidential race aren't going to be the favorites when time rolls around for the election. I think that it's going to be somebody, honestly, who stood up in the face of enormous pressure and stood against a lot of the unpopular things that the Biden administration did, who's going to win out in the end. Because I remember when I got really first interested in politics for the first time, it was because of the Iraq War, and it was because the Obama campaign was against the Iraq War and Hillary Clinton's was not. And I was outraged that she was considered the front runner when she had supported such a horrific illegal war that killed up to 1 million people by some analyses. So when you want to get young people back into the fold, it means addressing this very issue. And I think that the Democratic front runner in 2028 hopefully is somebody who has done so.
Jake, do you think that anger is there? And in California, you know, their voters are going to get a say in this whole thing to a certain extent. They're going to have to approve this major change. So do you think they are going to get behind Newsom and actually make this move?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a decent chance that the ballot measure passes. I also think that just in terms of the salience of the gerrymandering issue, this is not something that like the median voter or general public is like really enthralled in. However, I think what Newsom is proving is a thread that we're going to see play out going into the midterms in 2028. Which is not as much of a progressive versus centrist thing and more of just two diverging schools around the theory of attention, kind of to Emma's point earlier, where it's who is going to ruthlessly dominate the attention market. And we keep hearing these various platitudes that have kind of stemmed from, you have the Hakeem Jeffries, we're not going to swing at every pitch, the Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. And I just think that the folks who are going to be voting in these Democratic primaries, at the very least, do not want that. They want a fighter.
So to that point, when you kind of look at how Gavin Newsom has been trolling the president, and take away the substance here for a minute, it does seem to be getting under the skin of the right wing. Let me play for you guys how some on Fox have been reacting to this, and I'll get your thoughts to it. Watch.
Congressman Greg Abbott, who is in a wheelchair, and Newsom says he rolled over for Trump. We asked for a statement, and Newsom's office said something flippant like, oh, you're so woke.
I don't know what he's trying to do, but it comes across as childish. And you're the governor of the biggest state in the union. What are you doing?
It's a bit rich that Fox News hosts are concerned about childish behavior when you've had almost 10 years of the biggest child that this country has ever had as an official with Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I kind of think, I'm not sure if you'd agree on this, but the theory of the case coming out of the 2016 primary was basically like, no one can throw this back at Trump. Look at what Marco Rubio did in that one debate, and it backfired so spectacularly. Well, not everyone's Marco Rubio, and it turns out that they might actually be a bit underprepared for this. And I can tell you, it's from talking to folks both in the White House and who stay in touch with the people from the campaign who were in the White House. A lot of these folks are getting pretty burnt out, I will say also. Like in the comms shop, there is not a, how do I put this? It's a little too reactive, is what I've been hearing from a lot of people in Trump world. And they are kind of used to the way they dictated the tempo in the primary, where they're leveling all the attacks and framing the debate.
So they actually, there's fear, you're saying, within Trump world that instead of constantly pushing forward and being on the offense, they're more reactive. I mean, that is interesting because they're so good at constantly shoving out their agenda, and to actually have to respond that, on their heels.
And that's an interesting point, because we hear a lot, and we've even at this table, this conversation, have talked about how people are looking for, on the left or progressives, Democrats, a fighter. We want fighters. We want a fighter. We also don't want losers. Like, nobody wants a loser, right? And so when you're talking about the White House being controlled by Republicans, you're talking about that both chambers of Congress essentially being under Republican control. What is the metric, right? Like, what is the metric for a winning fight, if you will? Is the metric getting the administration to be on the responsive and the defensive, not necessarily always being on the offensive? What is the metric that the Democratic establishment should be parroting to their base? Like, hey, we're not just fighting, but we're making progress.
It sort of seems to me like what Gavin Newsom is doing, is the most robust Democratic version of a response thus far. Can you think of something under Trump 2.0?
All right, everyone, buckle up, because what Gavin Newsom is doing right now is seeking the political word. He's not just talking, he's telling Democrats, fight fire with fire against Donald Trump. And yes, he means it. Trump's team is already working behind the scenes to rig the next midterms, and Newsom is making it clear Democrats can't afford to sit back anymore. The stakes have never been higher, and this is not just political theater. It's a direct response to a real threat against our democracy. Here's the first shocker. Newsom is mocking Trump publicly. We are talking about all caps social media posts, calling him Donald Tiny Hands, pointing out types in his autobiography. Stuff that gets people laughing. But don't be fooled. There's a method behind the madness. This is not just a comedy, it's a strategy. Every jab Newsom takes is designed to get under Trump's skins and grab attention, and it gets even wilder. Newsom filed a FOIA request investing Trump's alleged misuse of federal law enforcement. Let's that sink in. This is not trolling for fun, it's a political warfare. This message is loud and clear. We will not back down. Not now, not ever. Now let's talk numbers, because the numbers tell a story that can't be ignored. According to the Brennan Center, gerrymandering gave Republicans 16 extra seats in Congress after 2024. 16, that's a real miserable power grab. Democrats have been fighting with one hand tied behind their back for far too long, and Newsom is showing how to hit back hard and smart. But here's the twist. Anger alone won't win elections. Imam Vigilant makes a crucial point. Democrats need a positive working class agenda to match their fighting spirit. Universal child care, universal health care, fair taxes, these are politics that turn outrage into real, lasting political power. Without this, resistance is temporary. With it, you build momentum that can last for years. And here is where it gets really spicy. Jake Hurts asked the hard question: Is Newsom the right messenger for 2028? Maybe, maybe not. But voters don't just want a fighter. They want someone authentic, someone bold, someone unafraid to stand up to the powerful and unpopular decisions. Someone who inspires trust while keeping to fight alive. That's the kind of leader who capture attendance and win votes. Meanwhile, Trump is reacting like they have never seen before. Even Fox News has called Newsom behavior childish. Childish? From the governor of California? That irony here is stunning, and it highlights exactly why Newsom boldness works. He exposing the double standards while making Republicans defensive instead of always on the offensive. Newsom trolling is not just funny, it's a strategy masterclass. Republicans have dominated narratives for years, constantly attacking and framing debates. Newsom is showing Democrats how to grab the reins, shape the conversations, and make the opposition react. That's huge because being reactive is how you lose influence in politics. And let's zoom out. Winning is not just about making Republicans defensive, it's about building a coalition that lasts, one rooted in real, tangible benefits for working people. Look at history. FDR and New Deal did not just win, they dominated American politics for decades. Why? Because they offered a vision that improved lives materially, cut across communities, and build loyalty. Newsom is testing a modern version of that approach in 2025, and it's fascinating to watch. So, what's the metric for success here? It's a simple: keep Republicans on the defensive while proving to voters that Democrats fight and have a clear positive vision for the future. Newsom is one model. Social media savvy progressive are experimenting with another, but the takeaway is crystal clear. Democrats can't play small in 2028. If you think this is just trolling, think again. This is strategy. Stay tuned because the battle is just beginning. And